A very good morning, a warm welcome to all the panelists for the 33rd webinar of TeamLease. My special thanks to all the participants who have registered and who have been following us throughout this journey. It's a journey which we started around 6-7 months back with the thought of putting India back to work, right? So just that what we want to do is to ensure that the job seekers, the employers, and of course the HR fraternity get to know about some of the good practices, some of the things that is already done, and how they look at the coming quarters with respect to hiring, employability, and aspects, right? So coming back to this, the theme today is in terms of creating formal employment and building agility through new workforce models. We are going to talk in depth about the new workforce models, their impact, and we are going to hear it from our named panelists in terms of what they see in terms of these workforce models overall and as far as for their organizations as well. So I take this opportunity to kind of welcome and introduce the eminent panelists for the day. So to start with, we have uh, Mr. Ranga or Mr. Ranganath IVS. In short, he likes to be called as Ranga. So Mr. Ranganath is a seasoned HR leader having about 20 years of experience providing strategic HR business partner support to drive HR excellence, building organizations in emerging market through significant growth and transformation for business around from an HR perspective. And that has been the specialty of Mr. Ranga. He has been very passionately heading HR initiatives and interventions to complement business strategies. So at he is himself more of a business person than probably an HR. And of course, he has been helping with his strategic thought words and of course, initiatives in service industry as well as in manufacturing organizations. And he has worked in diversified segments like manufacturing, FMCG, ITS, and telecom sectors, and been associated with companies like Asian Paints, Coke, and of course, Idea Cellular, Aircel, and Signode India. Signode India, of course, is a very unique one. I think Signode is where we connect. I connected with Mr. Ranga, and we had been discussing that as well. At present, he is the head HR for a company called Shriram Bioseeds, which is a division of DCM Shriram Limited. Welcome, Mr. Ranganath. Welcome to the webinar, and we look forward to hear from you as we go along with the webinar, right?
Thank you, Sudeep.
So moving on, I think what we will do is we will look at, we'd like to welcome Colin, Colin Mendes, very popular name. I think we have seen the overwhelming response of people who have been thanking him for joining this webinar. And we have seen that enormous response in the last 2-3 days. So Colin Mendes is head of human resources from VoltasBeko, a joint venture between Voltas and Arcelic. In his current role, Colin is building talent that brings everyday happiness to each household in India, which is very unique in its nature. Bringing happiness in the household, which is very unique, right? Prior to this, he led human resources for domestic projects group at Voltas and was responsible for HR, capability building, compliance management and safety, health and environment. In his earlier assignments, Colin has worked at group level as well as across varied industries, which is telecom, ITS, FMCG, and of course, strategic level. He has held senior leadership positions with Group HR, which is Tata Sons, Tata Teleservices, WNS, Global Services, Bharti Airtel, Hindustan Lever, and Pfizer, with specific exposure in people and change management. Of course, he has been playing a great role during the mergers and acquisitions as well. His expertise has been regularly sought at conferences, forums, institutions, and knowledge centers like CII, NHRD, SHRM, People Matters, World HRD Progress, IIT Delhi, and other management institutions. Colin has been recognized as the Great Manager Awards 2017 in the category of Aligning Organization Vision, hosted by People, Business and Economic Times. Presently, he is Head of Human Resources for VoltasBeko, as I said. So, Colin, welcome to the 33rd webinar of TeamLease, and we look forward to hear a lot from you. And some of your experiences throughout this journey is going to be exceptionally interesting and thought-provoking for us as well.
Happy to be here.
Sure. So next we move to Sribesh from Shyam Steel. I must say that I think from the time we kind of started the promotions, there has been a huge element of people who had been who actually reached out to me, in fact, in terms of knowing about Shyam Steel, because it's one of the growing organization, and there has been a phenomenal work that they are doing across the eastern zone. And I think one of the things that came out is about Shyam Steel's penetration into the other markets, which at a later stage I will take it up. To introduce Sribesh Beltharia is an exceptional head of human resources with a demonstrated history of working in the mining and metals industry. He's skilled in HR policies, talent management, personal management, employee engagement, and recruiting. In his earlier assignments, he has worked with companies like Rashmi Group, Adhuni Group of Industries, Hindustan Construction, Glenmark, HDFC Bank, and ONGC. So from the name itself, it suggests that he has got experience in varied organizations spread across the industry, which is phenomenal. Sribesh is presently working as the Vice President and Group HR Head at Shyam Steel Industries, where he is steering the HR function in evolving, designing, and implementing various HR processes which are aligned to facilitate the long-term business strategy and create a benchmark in terms of HR practices. Welcome to the webinar, Sribesh, and we look forward to hear a lot from you. I think your varied experience across industries and you have seen brought a lot of success, and how have you implemented this? We would like to hear, with the new workforce models also coming into place, what do you think would be the means and ways to kind of implement them, make them effective? Planning is one, but executing, how to execute, what has been your greatest examples of execution, which we will all look forward to hear from you. So welcome to the webinar once again, Sribesh. We would move to the first set of questions, which I would like to hear from you. And for this, I think I will go to Sribesh first. Now, we have seen a number of new workforce models emerging over the past few years. We have seen short-term contracts, we have seen long-term contracts, we are seeing gig workforce, we are also seeing weekend assignments, right? So we would like to know your thoughts on these new models and how they could shape up your industry and create more formal employment opportunities. Over to you, Sribesh.
Yeah, thank you. Just let me first. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
See, this entire nature of work is changing, right? With the industrialization era to knowledge era currently, the way technology is taking shape from factories to all spheres of our life on any kind of organization, service organization, manufacturing, FMCG. So we are going to a era of innovation, era of technology, right? And with that, the nature of work is changing. What it was earlier and what is now and what it will be in future. That is a continuous evolving things at a rapid pace, and where talent plays a very critical role. It is not in the perspective of that what you decide. It is not like that. If you are so rigid, you will be, you will not no longer be existing in the competition. It is what you are doing right now, and how you are agile with respect to the marketplace, how fast you are choosing, how fast you are evolving, how fast your decision making is with respect to the current trend, practices, and policies. You will survive. Now, if you see, if you see in the current scenario, the things like gig, things like temporary assignment, contingent workers, availability of consultant. These things all were available in past, right? But now they are getting new name, new nominations in the industry with respect to the current scenario. Why? Because they are becoming very relevant at this current juncture. It is the millennials, it is the generation Z. They are deciding that what to do now. It is not the organization to decide. If I am as a professional is a very talented person, and if I feel that my earning capacity is per month I can earn this much of money, and then it is me to decide what to do now. I can opt for organizations for long run, and I can opt for many other things with respect to that. I can work for a 3 months, 6 months, or 2 months. Then I can do something. So the entire gamut, the entire organizational thought process, the people thought process, societal thought process, everything is evolving. And in that aspect, those who will respond fast, those who will understand and include that inclusion things. Yes, they exist, and they have to plan their entire work like that, involving gig worker, involving the temporary workers like consultants working, many other, and create a very holistic work package and deliver. They will be in long run, will be very benefited. And this is what the time will is coming like that. You have to take along with all this bucket. Otherwise, if a rigid mindset, you may be loser in the long run.
Sure, sure. Thank you, Sribesh. So I think Sribesh highlighted a very important point, which is these models on paper existed for a good element of time. They were implemented, of course, but the need of implementing them across companies, across industries has been something which we have been seeing from the recent times. Compared to the planning and the execution, of course, there is a gap. But having said, they have started, a lot of organizations have started it. So, Colin, I would like to hear your view because what is your perspective to the fact that these workforce models are going to be the so-called models of workforce in the coming years, and of course, more years down the line. How would organizations look into ensuring the adaptability at their end, and of course, the expectation, meeting expectation from the employee perspective in terms of work versus wages?
So I thanks Sudeep, and I completely echo with what Sribesh just mentioned. The world of work is completely changing, and today companies who do not adapt will actually be out of the game. And I think that is, gone are the days where companies really preferred, the traditional format. And I think manufacturing was the front runner in this, where you have people working, for a 30-year career kind of a model. And some of the companies also made very limited progress in looking at the non-traditional or the contract workers, which would actually really redefine today's model of work. Coupled with that, I think in the recent times, we've seen technology, we've seen automation. I think that's eliminated the need for human intervention, to a very large extent. And so therefore, to my mind, identifying and capturing, categorizing, and specialized skills will have a competitive advantage. Yeah. And I think today, Sudeep, companies will need to adopt increasingly innovative approaches to rebuild the talent. And today companies are looking at trimming down the workforce, in a conquest to manage costs and so on and so forth. I think today the pandemic has redefined the workforce model. Yeah. And today we are seeing a shift. We are seeing a major shift in the workforce mix from really the traditional on-roll contract trainees, to a more contemporary workforce model, which wherein you have a hybrid model, you have a work on-site model, you have a work virtually or remotely, you have a offshore kind of work, you have shared services, you have flexi hours, you have gig. I think these are all things that were there in paper as we spoke about earlier. But, I think this pandemic has helped companies accelerate their thought process on that. And today, this independent talent, I really foresee going forward, would constitute almost 15% of the workforce. Okay, with the popularity of contract jobs and freelancers will continue to grow, and that's what I see today. In fact, at my factory, at my company, I have a combination of on-roll, I have a combination of trainees, I have trainees in the form of GETs, DETs, apprentice from the NEEM and the NAP scheme, fixed-term contract, short-term assignees, flexi hours. So this is the kind of model we've already built in a new company like ours. And I personally foresee, of course, I was, reading a survey, new jobs, almost 50% of new jobs as we recover from this pandemic will be alternative workforce models. So 50%, and that's a significant sum that I'm talking about. So 50% of all new jobs that will start emerging will actually be through the alternative workforce models. And I think so, therefore, a very important point in a topic that we are really discussing today, in a situation like this. Look at what's happening in Mumbai, Sudeep. The average commute time is 2 to 3 hours a day. That's almost 7% of a day spent on the road. And I'm just giving an example, minimum average times, it could be much more for people. Companies are realizing the impact of remote work on cost. And I think that is making a big shift. So I personally see, Sudeep, this as a win-win for both the company and the individual. For the company, I believe it's an opportunity to redefine the way of work. Yeah. To bring in experts for specific projects that can really do a global. For example, you can have a global talent market. You can have a stronger focus on D&I, diversity and inclusion. You can introduce a liquid workforce. I think these will all make a difference going forward. Yeah. With a mechanism of managing demand and of course controlling cost. And for the individual, I think it's also a win-win opportunity. If you ask an opportunity, flexibility to display skill and expertise at multiple assignments. Yeah. So as I conclude, I see there is also a lot of challenge for human resources. And since three of us are human resources over here, I see it as a big challenge for HR. And I couldn't conclude without mentioning this, because I think it's important for HR today to recalibrate expectations, reskill at speed and scale, which is very, very important today. I think it's also important to build leadership skills for managing remote teams, which is important. To keep performance and productivity high when you have a dispersed, different workforce model. To manage engagement and really build a one company culture. And I think these are very, very key thoughts that I want to leave behind for people. I don't have the answers today, but it's a thought that we need to start developing and thinking. How do we manage this new future going forward?
Sure. Colin, I think two important points that I pick it up is in terms of the fact which you said that 50% of the new jobs or the jobs which are going to come forward would be on alternate kind of arrangements, which could be, as you said, trainees, you could be GETs, or you could be contractual workforce, and of course, seasonal hiring as well, right? Absolutely. Now, and organizations who are not going to show agility towards adaptation of both probably will, as Sribesh also said, might not be there in long run, right? Which is a very strong message, because that not only helps organizations of similar trade, of organizations in the similar category to also rethink as they do their planning for manpower in the coming year, which is 21. The financial year 2021, in order to say that what do they and how do they kind of do that, what percentages they kind of put it, allot to it, and etc. Right? True. Great. So coming back to Mr. Ranga, I think the question to you would be that you represent a different industry altogether. Having said that, you have an experience in the industries where both our other panelists have worked. How do you see similar kind of models getting implemented in the agri-tech industry? And predominantly, that's the largest industry in terms of GDP contribution. And how do you see that this gets further implemented? How digitization technology would further play a key role in making it an effective implementation?
Sure, Sudeep, thanks Colin and Sribesh for setting the context right. And, I would say one thing here. I think we all seen three generations of workforce, logically, if we can say. When we start the first generation, maybe our grandfathers or maybe our fathers, they took the employment just for the, to set the livelihood. You know, they start the job and they retire from the same company. I'll give my example, my father example. He started in working in a PSU and he joined as after post graduation and still 45 years he served and he left the company. So that's where, the first livelihood, they look for only roti, kapda, makan. So that's a main prerogative for that time. I don't know, at the time, there was no loyalty exists also because it's a mandate. You can't say that's a loyalty. There's no other options at all. If you can see 1900s with the technology evolving and people started looking for the, standard of living, maybe if you see our generation, if you say, maybe by the time we reach around 30, 35 years old, we want to buy a car, we want to buy a house, we want to set everything, then maybe, look for the quality of life. So that's the kind of workforce, has been evolved actually. Today, maybe 2000 onwards, if you can see, we are a digital world. Here people are looking for today what we are talking about, all the hybrid workforce model, all kind of contracts, flexibility, gig economy. See, today people are looking for the quality of life. See the livelihood, standard of living, and quality of life. And when those days are gone, people are working for 9 to 5, 9 to 6 o'clock, working the same company and move up to the company, look for the other personal life. Today, people are looking for how quickly I can complete the task. Whether it is a project based or in a contract based, I don't bother. See the differences. When we started our career, we want a job. Employment is a mandatory. Without any employment, people look at, oh, you don't have any job. But today, slowly, if you can see that the kind of digitization, the kind of technology, the kind of contemporary thought process. If you logically, if you can see, the entire process moved from conventional to unconventional employment today. As we all discussed today, all kind of processes are existing in the, in our businesses. Now, as I mentioned to you, if you see my career working for manufacturing and telecom and today in agribusiness, all models are really working. When I'm manufacturing, contract staffing is there. And again, FTs are there. Of course, GETs and MTs process is there. The same kind today, if you ask me, seed industry also, because we, spread across pan India and our ultimate customer is farmer. How I could able to reach them a farmer end of the day, which is the most important aspect. So in that connect, how I could able to engage my entire workforce, understanding the market conditions, understanding the digitization, how quickly I can adopt to technologies. Right. See, as we said, I think today's contest, we are looking for the adaptive technologies. No, I strongly believe that, having skills and knowledge are just like a pizza base. The pizza base, no one want to today's pizza base. I want more toppings. So what are those toppings today we're talking about? The adaptive technologies. We talk about the resilience, the kind of empathy, and agility we're talking about today. So these are the skills you don't get easily unless you have conviction over yourself, unless you adopt yourself. See, today most of the industries, Sudeep, today the post-pandemic made us to understand and very clearly what kind of skill set one should have. Number one, sure. And how competencies are changing from pre to post.
Sure.
I think these are the shifts has already happened, as Colin rightly mentioned and Sribesh rightly mentioned. Even today, if we say our organization, we're also working in the hybrid model. In fact, we have 3 different segments. One is processing industry, typical 360 phase. I have to run the process. R&D, research and development. I have 5-day working place and head office. And again, we have 3 entire corporate people sitting here. So I need to manage all 3 combinations of, head office working for, all 5 days. And, R&D, we are laying that by weekly 3 days. And processing plant, I'm taking about, work for entire week. So we as the HR people has to manage, understand the stakeholders' expectations, how we could cater the business to services to all these segments. I think that's where the understanding aspect and again agility, as we all agree on that, how quickly you can adopt the system and implement the process to ultimately my end customer should be happy and totally engaged. I think these are the models are evolving and already evolved some of the cases. I think this is the only way of life if we can look forward. Sudeep.
Sure. So as it happens, I think among our participants and many of the viewers, they are either on the first job, right? The first job or the first mile of the job, or probably are job seekers and looking for opportunities. Now, when they hear these models, of course, they get fascinated, which means they feel that there is, if at all there would have been only one type of a model, it would have been a different thing for them to look into. Since there are distinctive models, it helps them to believe that, well, that means the probability or the chances of my engagement with an organization is much brighter and the chances are more. So, what would you like to tell them in terms of the fact that what kind of job roles and what kind of skills that they need to possess to kind of say do get into a contractual engagement with your organization, Ranga, and what is that just apart from having good academics, what are the skill set they should further invest on, nourish or nurture in order to get the employment? To you, Ranga, this question.
Yeah, absolutely, Sudeep. As we all discussed, even Colin also clearly mentioned, today engagement will play a very vital role. And in those days, I still remember when I started my career, engagement is one framework for all employees. Whether they like it or not, I need to complete the task. I have to engage in the entire framework as per the guidelines. But today,
Sure.
engagement totally, the paradigm shift has changed totally. Because
Mhm.
today I need to customize the engagement framework on a different levels. As we
Mhm.
discussed about today, as I mentioned to you, for a contract labor, what kind of engagement I need to have. And
Mhm.
again, head office people, what kind of engagement I need to have. And in the
Mhm.
same way, again, R&D people, what kind of engagement I need to have. So
Mhm.
that's the
Mhm.
reason today what we did, we also did what is it expecting from the, HR on an
Mhm.
engagement platform. So what
Mhm.
kind of, because I can't run the same program for all the people. So it's very difficult to manage their customs and their thought process. So that's the reason, we did a very extensive survey to understanding each and every category of employment. So what kind of engagement you want. So based on the inputs what we received, then we made a customized engagement framework for all three categories of the people. And
Mhm.
having said that, as I mentioned to you today in the when we are hiring the people from GETs, MTs, their aspiration, their expectations are very high. Because so how I need to engage those people into my organization. So that's the reason what we did very predominantly. We start with 30, 60, 90 calibration process. So
Mhm.
30, 60, 90 is typically really very working very well. That means the moment employee complete 30 days and HR automatically, we are using that for, AI we are using, Lena AI we are using for this purpose. Now
Mhm.
automatically the brief questions will go to reach to employee will answer, and based on the inputs what we received, as a HR team will understand where we are losing whether it's the process gap or awareness gap and why these things are happening. If 1 to 5 rating is below 4.5, I think we need to act immediately. So like that, after 60 days, again, one more and 90 days. So that gives me very clear understanding approach, what kind of engagement level of the employee in the organization. So that is one approach we are predominantly, we are doing that. And now the second question, what you're talking about today, what kind of skill set they need to adopt? And skill set which are very, very, unique skill set we are looking for today. One is that, as I mentioned, agility is one of the important aspect, and problem solving approach. How quickly you can understand the problem. Should see those days you have gone stating that, I don't know, which is not there in the curriculum, I never have experienced. I think the moment you get an opportunity, you need to take an opportunity on how quickly you can come up with the problem solving solution. I think that's one of the skill set which is very, very important. And secondly, technology adoption. Of course, technology adoption means not just like that, using technology, but how I could able to apply on my ground level, I could able to conclude with a solution. I think the
Sure.
technology adoption, second one. And third one is the creativity.
Mhm.
Creativity also will play a very vital role. And I think these are the skill set one should able to understand and able to adopt, so that the existence, and they can definitely flourish in the organization level.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Ranga. I think.
Sudeep, can I take just add a line to
Sure.
what Ranga just mentioned? In fact, I think one important aspect that comes into my mind, and sorry to butt in right now, but I think where and when the work gets done, yeah, I think will determine on what makes most sense to determine the job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is the most, because that's the fundamental rule. Because you made a question on what roles and so on, so forth. I think it will primarily get determined on where and when the work will get done. And I think this, to my mind, will drive the highest level of productivity and engagement also, because it has to be, as I said earlier, it must be win-win for the organization and win-win for the employee. So this, I think, will determine on the roles. Of course, it needs to be looked at from an organization lens, whether that is what I want to do, for example, or something else. And I think one important point that I wanted to mention, Sudeep, here is that for example, look at a factory environment. Employees on assembly line. These roles must have to necessarily work on site. Or alternatively, look at office-based jobs and certain support functions like purchase, finance. Maybe for those kind of roles, you might introduce a hybrid kind of workplace work. Similarly, look at customer-facing roles, particularly in retail. Yeah, again, work on site. So I think the point that you made on job roles. I think the important point is we need to look at the context, the business. The important point of what I mentioned is where and when work will get done will actually determine the job role. I think these are key factors to focus on, which role will fit into which bucket, and therefore organizations, when they are modeling their new workforce model, will have to consider a number of factors like this to handle it.
Sure. So next I will kind of continue with you, and then I'll go to Sribesh. So Colin, I mean, from the job seekers' perspective, there are people who have lost their jobs, right? The pandemic impact, because of that, they have lost their jobs.
Yeah.
They have also realized that they need to be flexible in terms of their skill sets, because a lot of times in India, it happens that he has been a mechanical engineer and she has been probably also a mechanical engineer. I'm talking about job seekers, but apparently because they invested their time in learning technology and some programming, they had got a job in an IT company. But then apparently, or many such examples where because of the pandemic impact, they had lost their jobs. Now they want to give a restart to their career. So the academics comes from a different background. Their short-term trainings had fetched them a job, which they don't have right now. What kind of thought-provoking, inspirational message you would like to give it to them? How do you think they should look forward? What kind of investments they should do in terms of skilling on, or probably skill development, knowledge acquisition? What would be your thoughts on those?
So actually, that's an interesting point, and I think it'll all boil down to each one's competency and where is their interest level lies. While I will share my perspective on it, it'll also depend on this, and this is a very, very important factor, because unless you have your priorities as an individual, right, where I want to go and what I want to do, it is difficult to take forward whatever I say. But I think, having said that, I think, Sudeep, I think the most important aspect is that, in today's context, there is a number of jobs that we have all seen, that have gotten redundant. Yeah. And this is important for people to realize that, if I don't quickly have multiple skills, then I might soon get redundant very quickly. And with technology, automation, when I'm saying automation, a huge amount of automation has moved even to factory levels. Where you see a large infusion of robotics and so on and so forth, and also to ensure that certain routine laborious tasks are really done by machines and done by robots, so that you are eliminating human intervention in that sense. So what does it mean for every individual who is possibly watching this show today? I think the important thing is that, if I need to be relevant for tomorrow, I need to upskill myself. Yeah. And so therefore, what's my area of interest? If my area of interest is A, then I need to move in that trajectory. Also very important, to focus on, general management capabilities, because, if you join as an operator, you don't need to necessarily have the mindset that I will retire as an operator. As I was talking about it earlier, it was like a 30 years, association with one organization. That concept has completely been redefined. So in the current scheme of things. So I think the generation today has to keep thinking about variety of new skills that are emerging. And I think there are enough and more that are prescribed by NASSCOM, by World at Work, by Future of Jobs. I think they're all being prescribed. A lot of it is focused on the digital aspect because the world is moving digital. And I'll tell you today, we are living in a generation that I truly call not a Gen X or a Gen Y or a Gen Z, but a truly connected generation. Yeah. And that is the skill that every individual, whether they are a mechanical engineer, chemical engineer, or electrical engineer, that's the skill that they need to adopt. They can't say that I'm happy with playing with screwdrivers and so on and so forth, to put it very crudely. But I have to start moving the needle. I have to also focus on general management capabilities, communication, presentation skills. And I'm telling you this because, Sudeep, and I visit a number of engineering colleges, in the last few years, and I see that this is a skill that sometimes is lacking. And I think it's very important both for academia, institutions, and companies to come together to try and rebuild this skill to make the new people who are coming in far more employable. And of course, I know TeamLease is doing a lot of work in this area, so it will make a lot of sense that, to build this skill that will be not only ready for today, but future ready as well.
I have one point
I'll add to that.
Sure.
Colin said this very nicely. He said only one thing. In my perspective, it is true that many people, lost their job in this pandemic. It's a very true, very kind of things right now. So it is for them also. Okay, this is the right time to do introspect. To find out why they have lost the job. Right? It is due to the skill gap, due to the industry type, due to they are not able to perform well. It is their attitudinal issue. So this is the time to reflect upon yourself, to understand where do you stand in the market, and if there is a skill to be take up, what are the courses to take up, how to go ahead in life. Because sometimes one full stop, sometimes it is very necessary, to come back to yourself again and think deep and find out some solution that to thrive and in long run and to become successful. Because that particular point sometimes is a paradigm shift for yourself, for your career. But if you do not take the learning, you are going to suffer again in future.
Absolutely.
To substantiate this point, actually, I just want to give one classic example.
Sure,
So maybe today we are thinking, maybe the younger generation may be thinking a lot of excitement, overexcited actually, if I'm not wrong. Why? Because if you see logically, the kind of companies where I worked in, the GET who's joined as a GET, he moved as an MD of the company. Over a span of 20 years. Even though if I moved 5 companies, 6 companies with a lot of aspirations, I don't know whether I reached to MD or that level also. Even see the compensation with also, unless I have get a good branding companies or the kind of companies where I can make a more offer, more compensation, but still I have a doubt. But what I'm trying to say here, I think as Sribesh also rightly mentioned, you should have a patience to understand where I need to make my movement very clearly, and whether am I really adding value to the business or not. So today what's happening, Sudeep, I also seen a lot of youngsters now, within a span of 1 year, there's immediate take a decision. Yes, I'm not liking this company, or I'm not liking this job role, or I'm not liking my boss. I understand people leave for the bosses only. But end of the day, still I remember my 20 years back, if my boss says something, there is absolute, I need to accept the fact. I need to work on. Still I remember I work for more midnights, turmoil, while implementing the HRMS, PeopleSoft systems in this organization. Today, if you ask me, if I say something, any extra job, they say, sir, this is not my career. I don't know whether I can do it or not. So what I'm trying to say, I think the mindset of the people also need to change. Apart from the technology, adopted skill set, everything is fine. But also there is somewhere the kind of mindset also need to change. Now, how I can make my shift in the organization, how I'm growing in the organization, whether I'm really adding value to the organization. See, the moment I'm not getting the increment, what I'm expecting, the promotion, what I'm expecting, if I'm not getting, absolutely, yes, I want to give up this company, give up this job. I think that's where a little bit, tune needs required, if I'm not wrong.
Sure. I think what you are saying, and I mean, what Colin and Sribesh said, and you are also saying is, or rather you highlighted more, is probably a balanced approach.
Absolutely.
Of course,
Absolutely.
a reflection in terms of what I could have done differently so that I could have been still with the organization, what has been the value add that the organization expected, which I could not, and what is that I should learn and do more to kind of fit into those kind of expectations.
Very true.
Great, fantastic. Thanks for sharing all these perspectives. I move to the next question, and which is more from the roles that you people play, right? Because of course, you each one of you are involved with decision making from the business front as well. So as far as business decisions are concerned, you play a role in that. And of course, then you also help them in terms of what kind of workforce model that needs to be done. So my question is, what kind of factors, so which are like, what are the factors that help you decide that which would be the right workforce model? I would go to Sribesh, you first, that
Correct.
what kind of factors help you to understand, or what kind of factors you keep it in mind when you do your calculations, permutations, combinations, to understand that what kind of workforce do I need to engage?
Absolutely. See, if you talk about organizations, organization in a small sense, it's a function of a function of competitive advantage, goal orientation, engagement, and sustainability. In nutshell, in a smaller perspective, these four parameters actually align the set the long-term perspective for the organization. When we, as a professional, wants to decide what will be the go ahead and what kind of workforce model we are going to opt, we do a kind of industrial engineering, kind of OD work, that with the help of organizational development professional or the industrial engineer to understand what is the current framework of work in the organization, what kind of work is available. It is like how, what is the unskilled amount of kind of work, what is the skilled kind of work, in which level, what kind of operators are required in the ground level, engineers, what is the requirement of the organization chart, and finding with the time study, motion study, the equipments we have in the plant or in the business, kind of goal we want to achieve. So with respect to everything, we come out the statement of work, and we decide key with their perspective, with the plant head, with the technical persons, with the people who are consultant and expert, and we sit across and decide, okay, this is the percentage of work, for this, and then we decide, okay, this is for the outsourcing, and even for the gig also. Sometimes there are specific, you say, consultant hiring. So with respect to the research, with respect to the organizational engineering, with respect to the kind of business orientation, what we are going to do in long run, and even the immediate goals, we decide that orientation of manpower in the company. And after that, we go for the level 2, where we decide that if this is the amount of work we can outsource, and this is the amount of work we cannot outsource, and this is the expertise you need to bring in from the outside. So all those things are decided with respect to the four factors. Just I have said, that function of competitive advantage, function of sustainability, goal orientation, and engagement of people. So keeping these four factors in mind, and doing extensive work, doing extensive engineering, bringing engineering thought process, organizational and departmental goal, and understanding the people orientation, what we can do next. Then we come out with manpower planning, and accordingly with the planning we decide how to divide and how to outsource, how to give the work accordingly, plan the work accordingly, a hiring plan, outsourcing plan, consultant engaging, various other perspective to keep the organization agile and remain in forefront and response to the market trends.
Sure, fantastic. So I think sustainability, goals, and of course engagement. I think out of the four factors that you said,
Competitive advantage.
competitive advantage as well, right? So I pick up something which is in terms of competitive advantage and sustainability, and I would like to circle back to Colin. Similar things, right? I mean, what Sribesh says are the four factors, and as I said, that all three of you sit and take decisions or give your inputs in terms of organization, business decisions as well. So how do you align? You want to be competitive, and at the same time you have what multiple workforce models also. So what is that that makes you decide in terms of short term, long term, yet you would like to hold on a competitive advantage And so how is this equation solved? How is the problem solved?
Yeah, so I think, Sribesh really made a very comprehensive response to how do we tackle this situation. But I just want to also add to that, 3, 4 aspects, and then, this will possibly answer your question in that sense. I think one important factor to consider is also the demand and supply of talent. Do you have that talent that is available that you want to infuse into your model? That's very important. The second about it is, so sometimes if you're not able to get that talent, then you'll have to find ways and means to get that talent. And so therefore, that is a very important matter, or very important factor that will determine my workforce mix or my workforce model, so to say. The second thing is about the industry that we operate in. Whether it's a manufacturing setup, it's a service setup, and so therefore the determination of which model to use or which model I will have more predominant focus on, I think will also determine. So if it's a pure manufacturing setup, then a large part of it would be a kind of a work on site kind of a model. If you have a service, then you might have a hybrid nature, or so I think these are very important factors. And I think Sudeep, the other important point is customer centricity. Yeah. So as an organization, how do we look at customers? How do we respond to our customers? And so therefore, my workforce model will determine if my customers are more digital centric, then I would look at, infusing in a mechanism of communication via a digital network. If my customers are in a different segment, then I will also look at, different segment accordingly. So I think at the apex level, the customer comes first, and we all believe we are in here for business. So customer really comes first, and whatever we determine and derive and do will actually be based on that. So therefore, coming to important point is the model that I will select, whether I want to outsource or I want to in-house, okay? Whether I look at talent to borrow or I look at talent to buy, these are factors that, or where I will look at talent to build. So it's a question of build, buy, borrow. And I think we will have to look at a combination of all these to determine, which is going to be the right model for my company or for an organization that will be long-term sustainable. Yeah. And of course, I think, the important thing that Sribesh mentioned, obviously an in-depth study would be required to understand jobs, roles, and so on and so forth. And then based on that, really determine what is the model that you would fit for your company.
Absolutely. So I think you mentioned in terms of buying talent, borrowing talent, or probably building talent. So if these, we are talking about workforce models, we are talking about different levels of employee engagement, short-term, long-term, whatsoever kind of thing and all. Do you think that even the course curriculum, the last mile course curriculum, be it in engineering colleges, be it in graduation courses, they also need to have some element of shift towards what is really going to be required for them to finally get a job and sustain the job? Do you think there should be an element of shift in the course curriculum as well?
Very quickly, to my mind, I think industry and academia needs to work very closely. Relook at the current the current curriculum and how relevant it is in today's context. That is number one. Number two is once you have having done that, you also look at providing the appropriate platform and opportunity to an engineering student or a diploma student to actually get a foothold into the industry. So give them an opportunity in the form of an internship or an apprentice kind of a training and so on and so forth. Even live projects and so on and so forth. I think these are opportunities that will help them become better tuned. And I've been working with some institutions really to try and see how we can get better plug and play talent so that I spend lesser time in training and making them more relevant. Of course, I'm not saying that we'll expect the academia or the institutions to really give you completely tailor-made, and that's a more evolved mechanism if you want to go that way. But it is important to at least bring them about 90 to 95% there, and with about 10% to 5% training, they should be ready for my workforce. And that is, I think, the important aspect. So I think that in a nutshell, Sudeep, stronger cohesiveness between industry and academia will help industry get better talent. Yeah, looking at the curriculum, providing opportunities from industry. So I think this is, and also the academia must relook at that. And I think one interesting point I want to lay, and maybe my colleagues can give a point of view on that, is allow some of the from some of the professors from the institutions to do a 6-month sabbatical in an institution. Yeah, to really understand what does it take to work so that you're able to give that right message across. Yeah,
sure.
This is another point I thought that will make interesting. Because see, to a large extent, that's absent. We don't have a situation where, and organizations will be happy to take someone on 6 months, help them, just walk through and observe, and then go back to the institution. I think they will be able to train the kids better and make them far more employable.
Yeah,
Sure.
just adding on to that.
It's a fantastic idea. Yes, Sribesh.
It's a nice idea. Even my exposure with engineering colleges, there are lots of engineering colleges coming up, like mushrooms, everywhere there are engineering colleges. And the issue is that quality of faculty, quality of learning, this is also important matters at this juncture. Only with this building of skills, which is very relevant and is very, very important for the corporates, very, very important for the organizations. But this is a very important area to look into, and the management committee of the college or the university or the institution, they need to think deep on it, how they can truly build a skill for the students, how particularly what Colin mentioned, that academic relationship with the organization, with the institutions, with the factories, with the corporates is so important, that they should get right exposure in the true sense, they understand what actually in reality what they're studying, what is the correlations, and that part is a really big gap. And the gap in also in the faculty, in the academic sense, they are not well trained, then that availability is also very less, because the way it is being, colleges are opening, getting a right faculty, right teacher, right professor is a big challenge, and that is actually creating the skill gap, and which is in turn impacting the organizations or the ability to write resources. So this is a very big challenge for everyone, how to build in that, and how to actually build in true skills and for the young generation, GATs, DATs, and how they get a true meaning, true taste of skills, what is required, and how to they can grow that. So that kind of vision to be created from the colleges, which happens when a true sense, true connection happens between academic and our corporates.
Sure.
Can I say one
Talking
thing?
to you, yeah.
To build the same, discussion further, I visited some of the institutes where, these institutes have started the incubation. For example, they started in the university campus itself. They have incubation like Ashok Leyland, and Tata Consultancy and Tata Motors, like that companies. They're keeping their incubation center, wherein the weekends, some of the technical managers, they come visit the institute, and they train the people on the process actually. So that what will happen at the end of the day, when they come and join with an organization as an internship or a job, once selected, so from the day one itself, they'll be more productive because of they understand the process, they understand the technology, they understand the ways of working also. So that is one way of industry, academia, institute actually interface actually. And one more important aspect, I fully agree with Sribesh. Today corporates are looking, industries are looking for the adaptive technologies and skilling, unskilling, all kind of things. So in such kind of scenarios, how industries institute, how really supporting the students with this, skill set actually, which is one other big dollar question actually. Now, of course, as I said, in knowledge and skills are only the pizza base. I need a lot of skill set today. So what are the skill sets? Unless we have a collaborative approach, unless you also need to develop the faculty development, which is most important, because I'm working as a mechanical professor for ages. I know all these knowledge and technology, but how do you ensure that the guy is having the right kind of attitude, aptitude towards to get in a crack? I'll give a classic example, guys. Recently, we conducted two campus interviews. Believe me, I don't want to name out actually. Believe me, we could not able to take out even one single guy. Why? Because even at the time of GD group discussion, while writing the essay rating, just to share with you, I asked him to give essay rating. They simply copied in Google and pasted. Of course, one of my team member has just checked it out, and it's found that they just simply copied and pasted. What I'm trying to say, see, these are the some of the he's a 90% guy, by the way. 85% he got in MBA actually. So I think somewhere, the bridge between the industry and institute and the realistic honesty, some of the, see, that's why I always giving a lot of importance to adaptive skills, honesty, the integrity, which is the most important. Integrity means I don't want to take a bribe. That is not integrity. What I'm learning, what I'm not proving, what I'm not applying, that's also integrity.
True.
But the student has to understand.
Sure.
So because of technology availability is there, simply copy and paste. Don't you think that the guys who are sitting other side, they don't know how to check your story? Because of your statistical data is very clear, very aptly you captured. How do you capture such kind of things? At least even if you do also, you need to do something differently. So I think absolutely there is a gap. Of course, we need to travel. Of course, industry also need to support institutes also. And I recently came to know that some of the CAs like Hyderabad and Telangana, some of the CAs are also coming with one program where the faculty development actually. These faculties can visit the industry for a span of weekday or 10 days to understand entire the process mechanism, engagement framework, all aspects of ways of working, so that they could able to understand what kind of skill set required in the working for the industry. So these are some of my thoughts I just want to put across here.
What Colin said is fantastic, that they must go 6 months for industry. This is a very nice thought-provoking idea, because they should get this thing. I absolutely agree with Ranganath.
That is required, Sribesh, if you really want to get a guy from the industry, from the institute.
Absolutely.
Sure. So, Colin, to you, I think the next question would be that while all this, so there are factors which are to be kept in mind while you design the workforce models. But at the end of the day, when you look from an organization perspective, I think revenue growth and cost optimization are two very important thoughts, right? Now, we spoke about what should ideally be done in order to get the best kind of employees, engagement. You said about buying. Sribesh got about 4 very interesting points. We need to, but the first point which he mentioned is to create a competitive advantage and etc. In those aspects, growth and of course cost optimization plays a very important role. So how, as an HR person, would you balance these? Because these are tough things. These are like two sides of a barrel, right? What are the ways and means, and what are the things, like how can this help to build agility again? So if agility is the focal point, how do you still build agility, keeping in mind that the different workforce models you adopt finally leads you to get the growth and also keeps the cost under control, or what we call as cost optimization? Your views on that?
Yeah, Colin or me?
No.
I just want to share one point here, Sudeep, if you see entire workforce, I'll bifurcate like a teeth to tail ratio. Okay. So what is my teeth? Sales, marketing, customer service. So people are interfacing with the end customer. So even tail is that all support functions. Maybe today I'll say that HR, finance, commercial, legal, all these are tail actually. At the end of the day, irrespective of any segment, you say business is looking for top line, bottom line. These are more important. Whatever the interventions you do.
But Ranga, you might have a huge disagreement from fraternity, because HR no more is a support function.
No, I agree. Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to say. Even business has to believe in that. Absolutely. Right. Still a lot of debates are going on. How HR, I see, for example, any engagement survey, any engagement program I do, first and foremost, my business head will ask me, Ranga, what is in it for me? So can I see any retention about this program, any employee retention? Can I see productivity? Can I see high potential? Can I see my sales increasing or my productivity increasing? So these are some of the basic questions, business head is looking for. So that's the reason I just made, teeth to tail ratio. But I must ensure that end of the day, if any of these manpower, like as I said, sales, marketing, customer service, I think I must, being HR business partner, I must ensure that I need to have the right kind of 100% filling of all these, teeth manpower, actually, workforce management. So because these are the revenue generating, directly impacting the business. That's I need to understand. Suppose if I don't hire the sales guy in the market, being a seed industry, there are 300 competitors are there in the market. If my territory manager is not there in the particular territory, the other shadow will come and pick up my business actually. The same way, if you ask me, maybe 10 years back, if you can say, I think Colin also worked in telecom, there are 13, 14 players were there in telecom.
Yes.
My sales guy used to vanish for 1 hour. He said, I got 2 offers. Because the third floor is one company, fifth is the other company, and right is one company, left is one company. I think, managing these kind of people is very difficult. So having said that, Sudeep, to answer your question very clearly, first understanding, business perspective and what business is looking from HR head. And I need to understand the market very clearly and who is a competitor. And then only I can add value to the business. I also need to train my entire team also towards that aspect. That's the reason what predominantly I do. I extensively visit the market. I'll work with the sales guys. I travel my sales officer entire the territory. So then what will happen by doing that? At least I understand who are the competitor, what it needs for me. And that's the reason I'll tell my team also, if any sales officer calling to HR team, please immediately respond to him and resolve his query. Because we're all busy if any sales guy calls up. I'm busy, you are busy. But end of the day, is not happy. But I'm busy with managing my engagement framework. And their guys are busy with doing an entire digital workforce. But end of the day, my sales guys who are working hot summer and winter and rainy season, they are not happy with anything. So I'm talking
So Ranga, if I ask you to focus on the pros and cons of this particular thing, workforce models finally with a goal to meet growth as well as cost optimization, what would you put as the highlighting points in terms of the pros and cons?
See, one pros is that I think we need to have an effective engagement framework, which is very clearly, that's why, one is a building relationship manager. How banks are having the relationship manager. I think entire the workforce, 1,000 workforce, I need to divide 4 to 5 categories. Every 500 or 200 people, there should be one relationship manager. So that at the end of the day, we could able to understand what employee needs in the organization. And how could able to I can deliver the quality services to my employee. So I always look like one is the building relationship and effective employee engagement, and also understanding unique job roles and which are the unique job roles in the organization which is impacting the overall revenue and margins. I think if I being HR guy, I could able to understand, I could able to plot entire the workforce into this platform. Then definitely I can play my cards, whatever they need.
Sure. Colin, your views.
Sudeep, I think, in fact, Ranga answered that really comprehensively. But if I were to just add a little to that, to my mind, HR plays a very important role, and between revenue, cost, growth, customer optimization. Today every proposal that we put across, we try and work out what is the ROI that we are going to derive on that. Yeah. So it's very important to understand that whatever we propose, we need to have HR will have a long-term view. There has to be a calculated risk in terms of what exactly we are doing and how we are going about doing it. There has to be a focus on not only one, but maybe a couple of alternative models, and which is the best model that will go through. I think this will actually drive cost optimization. Now, while there has been a huge expense that companies have incurred, there has been a lot of savings that companies have also incurred, over this period. And I think the new workforce model that we are all referring to also gives us a window for cost optimization, And today, I think CFOs have been really looking at this and examining that there are immense ways to optimize cost, not only over now, but as we grow into a new workforce model going forward, we can economize on, or we can rather optimize on cost to a very large extent. Yeah. So if I were to put it this way, hybrid workforce model, I think will work. This will increase agility. It will increase resilience, and it will build or drive a competitive differentiation really in the market, besides of course economizing on cost and saving money. Yeah. So I think this is what I feel will be the way forward. And I think HR will play a very significant role in making this happen. In terms of identifying the talent pool that is available and so on and so forth, and really building the skill that is required in an environment that has shifted from where it was yesterday to where it is today.
Sure, fantastic. So, Sribesh, to you, what do you think are your views in terms of the pros and cons with respect to different workforce models and, of course, the impact on business outcomes, which predominantly are in terms of cost optimization and revenue growth?
Yeah, see, if you taking from Ranga and Colin's, the way HR is evolving, the role of HR, in 1980s, you see the CFOs before that were just like accountants and they're doing generic accounting work. Now, after 80s, they become very, very important resources for the organization. They learn how to use the financial resources for the growth of the organization. They learned investments. They thought money is not only to be earned, it can be invested and the resources of the organization can be grown up, and it is a strategic function and they become very close to the business. Similarly, now HR has come up with the age, and also that administrative perspective to the business orientation. In Fortune 500 companies, you see that a, a lot of people are from the businesses. 40% people are joining as a CHRO from the business background, not from the traditional HR background. So the subject is also evolving with the space. Things are evolving, right? In the same way, there's work changing. Now, as in the current HR or CHROs and professionals in the human resources, they are also into the predicting things, how to predict the future of work, how to diagnostic thought processes, and then prescribe to the organization what is to go for. Now, in that process, they need to do in-depth understanding about the cost optimization. What is the cost inquired by, the contract labor cost? What is the cost for full-time employees cost? What is the cost for? So they need to have clear understanding about the business, the cost part, and how what is happening in the market, benchmarking part, and how things automation can help. And after that, they can decide the right model which they need to think, considering everything available in the market. The current, it is a bucket, it's a great opportunity for the HR to use consultant, gig, your contractors, because there will be a competitive advantage for the organization if they can take a right decision and they can engage them, and it is an opportunity for the organization. Like kind of
Mhm.
a platform TeamLease provides. If the HR heads they are able to use that, it will be a strategic advantage for the organization. So that
Sure.
mindset, to reach to that mindset, they need to have the capability to do the analytics, right? Analytics, right? Understanding of the business, and they can play a right role for the organization. So in my opinion, it is the HR which is now come up. They need to be totally business friendly and they understand the business as CFO understand the business, or anyone who is CEO understand the business, and then they go in depth and pick up from the buckets which is available. And if they do not able to use that buckets in long run, they may miss something, so they must use it and look forward to that.
Sure. Fantastic. So I think I will move to a different angle today, which is also organizations are getting ready for that. Now, at a different layer in the organization, the decision making layer, the layer that you people belong to, there is a lot of thought in terms of alternate workforce models, the models that we spoke. How do you implement them in order to meet the organization outcome goals and etc. But it is very evident that individuals at that level cannot drive things. They will definitely drive, but then you need a lot of doers at multiple levels, right? Which is within HR or HR operations or whatsoever, right? So how do you think this HR as a function will evolve or needs to evolve in the due course of time? And I'm sure in the coming few months, all of you will visit colleges to hire for the HR domain, right? People who have passed with the specialization of person management, HR, and all. What would be the ingredients that you would look for in them? So, two questions. Second is, when you will hire for the HR functions in future, what kind of thoughts you will keep it in mind when you hire them? What kind of challenges you kind of might face or would face are facing right now? And the next question is, what are the evolution that in the HR function you see that that's happening, and how are you managing that? So I would put across to Mr. Ranga this question, because you recently said you visited few colleges where, of course, you have probably not been too happy with some of the conduct of the students and probably the quality, and hence the challenge is very much there and it's pretty evident. So I thought of starting the question with you. You can put forth your views.
Yes, Sudeep, how we are expecting, from the business managers, from the sales fraternity, from marketing, how they need to evolve from one level to another level. Definitely, I think there is a radical shift is required from the HR fraternity also. Because I strongly believe that, irrespective of any segment you talk about, I think HR team, including, the head of HR, function of HR, one need to understand the competitive advantage. Number one. Number two, they also need to come with a predictive analysis, which is the most important element today. A lot of buzzwords happening across the industry actually. Predictive analysis, predictive, index kind of thing. No, why? Because unless you predict what's going to happen in the overall workforce, who is going to resign, who is going to leave, and who is high potential, who is looking for the aspiration level, next level. I think these are some of the intellectual thought process should come into picture. Okay. And number two is that I think HR also need to enhance their competencies. And we definitely move from, as Sribesh and Colin rightly mentioned, we have to move from, of course, we have started with administrator, facilitator. Today we need to be enabler. I think any process we bring into the system, you talk about technology, you talk about engagement, you talk about talent development, how the ease of doing things, which is the most important. Why I'm telling you, because today, if any technology driven, any new technology come into HR process, but is that really impacting my ultimate employee who is remotely working or not? Or it's only happening only within the, maybe the corporate in other offices. So I think that the end is very, very important. Number two. Number three is that, HR people also need to understand what are the business elements which are very important to the function actually. Either you say engagement or you talk about any kind of initiative we are taking. So what kind of value addition HR team is bringing to the table, which is the most important. That's the reason I always believe that, you want to become a committee member or core committee member. See, committee member, anybody can become a committee member within the, function. But if you really want to become a core committee member, then business look at you. Hey, come on, Ranga, tell me. So what kind of, this is a kind of decision I would like to take. So can you please tell me whether it's right or wrong? So I think what I'm trying to say, we need to have more aligned to the business and alignment. Of course, the financial acumen, which is the most important, understanding the numbers and where we are losing, for example, any productivity, making the productivity. For example, if I ask my team to come with what is the productivity report for the last year, H1, H2, they could be able to make out, who are the top 10, who are the bottom down. I think HR has to, have a flag to the business side or a sales side.
So Ranga, quickly put it across. I have a quick question for you before we move to others. So when you build your HR team, your business, farmers happen to be one of your, they are your customers, right?
Absolutely.
How does probably a farm assistant who is or probably the guys who go and talk to retailers, how does the interaction with the farmer happens with respect to the seasons, the kind of crop? Would you like your HR folks also to get exposed to that, go see what happens, how the business evolves?
Absolutely. See, until unless I don't know what kind of product I'm going to the market and how the product is receiving by my customer, and tomorrow, how do I evaluate my sales employee? See, if I really want to have my own stake on the sales employee evaluation process, first of all, I also need to understand what is the process mechanism for that. So what kind of products are there? Who are the competitors for that? And how as you rightly said, how my sales guy is having a conversation either with the retailer or with the distributor or with the farmer. Is there any mismatch based on the business expectation versus the actual ground?
Sure.
I think that's where business look at me today. If I go and talk to 10 people, if it's sitting in a boardroom and I'm giving a big presentation, business may not look at me. If the moment I go and field bus 3 days, 3 weeks, I travel. So these are my outcomes. They definitely, you please start for your presentation. I want to hear from you people issues rather than
Sure.
other people talking about. I think that's the reality. I just want to cut through candidly on this area.
Sure. So I'll go to Colin. Colin, your views. How would the HR function evolve in order to meet these demands of alternate workforce models? And how do you think you would build your future team of HR? What kind of skill set that you would look forward to people who would be in future joining your organization, so as that they have that trainability factor in them, and then able to kind of intake the required training. Your views on that?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sudeep. And in the interest of time, I'll be brief. But I think one important aspect from an HR standpoint when I'm hiring, and I've already done that because I'm in the process of setting up a new company. And so what I've done is the way I've modeled my current team is I have modeled it in the same format we've been discussing today. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I did 2 years back. So when you're building a team, I was conscious enough to keep certain core processes internal and also certain processes that are non-core to external people and people who can do that job. So which means that you don't need to necessarily have a large team anymore. You can manage with a very small workforce, and HR does not need to be there present everywhere. Every people manager is responsible for his own people. It's not HR responsibility, and that's an important point that I want to mention. So therefore, do we really need so many HR people? It's a point to think about. And so therefore, when I was building my team, Sudeep, I must tell you that I was very conscious that whoever I add in will be hands-on. Okay, will need to understand the business, as Ranga mentioned. If you do not have an understanding of the business very well, you will never be successful in getting the right people in and actually making your company profitable and productive in the near future. If you do not understand, I'm giving a manufacturing setup. If you do not understand what the person at the line is doing, you will not understand the level of engagement that the person is on. Yeah. If you do not understand the person in a retail store who's talking to a customer, his pain point, you will face issues of, attrition and so on and so forth. So I think an HR person should not be sitting at his desk, and he has to be out there in the field to understand people far more better. Yeah, that is a fundamental, and I'm putting it in very simple English. They need to be out there to understand business, to understand jobs better. And I want to make another proposition today also. In addition to what I proposed earlier, HR could even be given a 6-month stint in a business function to really understand the business function. Yeah, that will enable them to understand it far better than being a silent observer. When you actually put your hands to do it, yes, that is when the difference will take place. So this is a thing that organizations can consider. And trust me, for a management trainee or for even a general management skill building program, it is important to rotate them in business functions, in support functions, in HR functions. That is only when they will become better business managers and better CEOs in the future. So that's my take on HR people.
Sure.
From an overall hiring of the rest of the people, I think I will look for ability to adapt, looking for ability to thrive in a very unstructured and ambiguous environment. Yeah, coupled with the agility for learning. I think if you're able to get that ambiguity and unstructured environment, these are the type of skills, these are the type of people that you should look for. It's very easily said in English, but this is the talent that a recruiting manager would need to look for. The ability to work in an unstructured environment, to work in an ambiguous environment, and that will enable them to thrive.
Sure. Sribesh, your quick views on that?
Yeah, rightly said by Colin and Ranganatha in the same line. See, first is to right now adaptability is very important when I hire for. So must be adaptable to scenario. Then tech savvy is very important because that is one of the important skill. And third is learning, unlearning. How fast you can unlearn things. Nowadays is very important. So these three parameters I will take care first. and take into account for going forward to have my team members, recruiting of my team members. But what both of them said is truly, I totally agree. HR is now not is like the traditional things. They are core business partner. They need to be in the business. They need to understand the people very closely, very clearly, and they need to suggest to management who to pick, who to promote, whom to, if there is a new business verticals are coming up, so whom to place there. To know their people, they need to engage them. They need to have various kind of communication forum. They need to meet them, not like traditionally. They need to meet them out of the box, and they need to also take part in various kind of dealer meet, distributors meet, and in the plant level, workman level engagement. And so they need to have thorough idea about their people, who are they, what is their strength, what is their weaknesses, and then only HR will able to give true color and true picture to management, and they can bring the changes necessary. Otherwise, it will be never be a game changers. It will remain backseated. So to lead, they need to
Sure.
come.
Great. So in the paucity of the time, I think we have a question from Mr. Devarajan Venkatesan. He has talked about challenges which we are going to face post-COVID. Now, we don't know whether we are in the early stage, mid stage, or towards the end of it. But I think we will try to frame his question in terms of the fact that how are we planning to mitigate. Now, we don't know. We were never prepared. We were probably more better prepared compared to probably another outbreak. But I think what he's trying to ask, I'm just interpreting his question, that how are we placed right now in order to say post pandemic, how are we uh, kind of aligned right now in terms of jobs and etc. So I would put it question to all three of you one by one, in terms of, are you hiring right now, and what kind of talent or numbers that you look to hire probably in the next 6 months, 1 year's time? To you, Colin.
Yeah, thanks. So thanks. In fact, I was just looking at Devraj's question in the chat box also. I think he's asking about what challenges we are currently facing. And yes, from an overall hiring perspective, we have commenced hiring. In fact, we have our factory at Sanand in Gujarat that manufactures refrigerators. And next calendar year, which is in 2021, very soon, a few months away, we will be also putting up a washing machine factory. So from a hiring perspective, yes, we have already commenced hiring, and we are looking for the right talent and the right skill. And, that's where we are going to focus on. It's going to be primarily in the manufacturing area, which will have positions across the entire spectrum. At our factory. So this is from an overall hiring. So are there any challenges that I'm facing for hiring? I think not at all. But I think there is one important consideration to think about, because the people are a little skeptical about changing locations. So if the person is from Delhi and a potential good candidate, I want to get to Gujarat, that might be a bit of a question, because in the current scheme of things, the ability of people to move from one location to another is a bit of a question. So therefore, the important thing to keep in mind is try and find the best local talent that you can. I think that is what the pandemic has really taught us, to focus more on being local and, trying and getting the best talent there. And how do I plan to mitigate such a scenario? I think I just mentioned it. I think focusing on more of a local talent, and of course also building the talent that we can. So these are few things.
Sure. Ranga, what are your views in terms of, are you hiring right now, or what kind of talent you would look forward to hire in the next 6 months time? Because that's important.
In fact, the last 9 months, we have been hired around 50 people in the frontline sales, all virtual, of course, virtually we hired. In fact, we also had some of the leadership positions also been hired. And of course, we're ensuring that, virtual induction should be part of we clearly made an SOP also, how to be hired, because we want to educate, we want to give a training to all the line managers also. So how to be interviewed during the virtual process. We also made an SOP to the candidate, so that any employee, any candidate we are calling for an interview, we are sending a advance SOP, how to be more focused on the preparing for interview. And so that's what we did. And having said that, I want to compliment what Colin said. Even today's contest, people, the candidates, aspiring candidates, they need to have more of flexibility. That is more important, because today I may not, it may not be possible to offer you, maybe Hyderabad guy to Hyderabad, Delhi guy to Delhi guy. So geographically should be mobile. Mobility is one of the most important aspects, because that is due to business changes in the business models. I may not require at this point of time in Hyderabad, but I may require in other states. So are you ready to move further? Leaving the hometown and staying back. So I think that's one of the important aspect, Colin. I think today's youngsters, they need to understand very clearly flexibility,
Yes.
adaptability. These are the two things which are very, I think they need to go in mind very clearly. So that's what I can say.
Completely
Yes,
echo your thought.
I'll come to you with a little more interesting question. Today, I think we are talking about gig workforce. We are talking about new workforce models and etc. We have seen that social media is playing a key role in marketing, right? Be it about your company, be it the open positions that you have, in order to get the job seekers to know that you are hiring, or for them to let you know that they are ready. How do you see in terms of social media, or what is your organization doing in terms of marketing, social media, etc.?
See, today employer branding is
Ranga, the question is to Sribesh. I think
sorry.
I'll come to you.
So yeah, see, so we are in an era right now where, let us understand that social media has become a new norms, new cultures. We call new normal. So even the people who are your domestic helps, they are also using Facebook and other things. So it is a new culture evolved. So the why for HR people, our objective is to reach. So whenever we post a job, we want that it goes to many people immediately, and we get responses, and we immediately validate, and we can close the position. So social media is playing a very important role, to use it in the right way, in right sense. And posting a job immediately, it can be viewed by thousands of lakhs of people, and who can apply, and immediately we can reach to shortlisting position. And also social media is a fantastic tool, and not only for the HR, for other aspect of the business. You do your marketing, so it's becoming a new sensation for the businesses. You see that the digital marketing people are doing excellent right now, and we as a HR also, it's a tool for us, right? So we're using that tool, and we are very fitted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we close, Ranga, your final views. You wanted to add something?
Yes. Today social
doing
media
a lot in social media and in digital. So it's an exciting thing for you as well, and I'm sure you are driving it within your company a lot. So please share your views.
Yes, absolutely. Sudeep and Sribesh rightly mentioned social media playing very, very important role today. In fact, I would say very clearly, if I call any lateral guy or a fresher to the interview, immediately what you'll go first, you'll go to Glassdoor, and you will see what is the kind of culture of the company, what is the compensation of the company, what is the hierarchy of the company. Number one. Number two, he'll also look at the profile, LinkedIn profile of the Ranga, or the person who is going to meet up. First you'll see what kind of companies he worked in, what kind of leadership skills he or she has actually. Because today LinkedIn is providing a lot of skill sets also. You can endorse actually. By seeing those kind of skill set as a candidate, he also prepare his mindset. So how to answer, how to address that person individually. Number two. Number three, of course, today most of the people are looking for the experience actually. I just want to tell you very clearly. They are looking for the what kind of experience I'm getting into from the hiring to till retire. Which is the most prominent, and play very, very vital role. Before coming for interview, what kind of an experience I had. After onboarding, what kind of experience I had. So I think today that too, digital media is very always handy for all the people. If any bad experience, they don't hesitate to put in a LinkedIn. Even today, we can see a lot of resignation letters, and somebody is asking to go. Some of the termination letters, people are posting, left and right. I think we being a organized, I think HR people also need to be more careful and more vigilant. So how things are happening and what kind of communication. Even if a team also communicating properly, and that also need to check on properly. And of course, employer branding, and we also encourage all our business heads to participate in various guest lectures so that people could able to understand what we are, where we are today. I think absolutely digital is playing very vital role. The pros and cons also there, but how effectively you utilize that, which is one of the most important aspects.
Sure. Great. So thanks.
I just have a
Please,
parting comment.
please.
Sorry, just a parting comment, and it's a very short one. But I think while social media is so very important, and all of us are leveraging that, it's important to use it responsibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the only message that I want to give to all the youngsters watching it, because what content you post in which domain is very critical. How you approach is very important. So use social media responsibly. And I think that is when you will get the power of social media. So that's just my parting comment on that.
Absolutely. And I think that responsibility or that irresponsibility can actually show up at many years down the line during a job interview as well. You never know. So hence, it's always good to be responsible.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. It was fantastic having all three of you. I think we learned a lot. I'm sure the participants have actually got a lot of their answers because we kind of touched all the quarters. We looked at asking you guys your perspectives towards jobs, career building, skill, organizations, growth, cost intimations, and etc. Implications of how are we going looking to the next quarters and etc. And I think a combined mix of retail, mining, in terms of factories, agriculture, and etc. So it was fantastic to have all three of you. We look forward to have you again in your future webinars. Thank you once again, and I think we should be able to share with you all the responses that subsequently we receive post the webinar. Thank you.